She announced, "I'm bisexual now and want an open relationship. Evolve or leave." I responded, "Let's try it." Then I went on 3 dates that week while she got 0 matches. When she cried about me using the open relationship she demanded. Been a crazy few months, Reddit. I'm sitting here drinking a beer after the final fallout and figured I'd share what's probably the wildest chapter of my life so far. If nothing else, maybe someone can learn from my mistakes. I'd been with Arya for 3 years. We met at a mutual friend's housewarming party, hit it off, and things progressed pretty quickly. She was fun, smart, and we had enough in common to make it work without being carbon copies of each other. I've always been straightforward about what I want in relationships: honesty, loyalty, mutual respect. Arya seemed on the same page. For the first 2 years, things were solid. We moved in together after a year, split expenses evenly. I refused to be the only one paying bills despite making more. Seen that trap before? And generally had a good thing going. Our sex life was good, not earth-shattering, but regular and satisfying. We talk about the future sometimes. Not marriage yet, but not ruling it out either. Then about 6 months ago, something shifted. Arya started hanging out with a new group of friends from her gym. The ringleader was this woman named Jade, tall, tattooed, and with an obvious chip on her shoulder. Suddenly, Arya was going out more, coming home later, and being weirdly secretive about her phone. Classic red flags, but when I brought it up, she'd get defensive and say I was being controlling. So I backed off, gave her space, figured maybe it was just a phase. Big mistake. Last month we were having dinner at home when Arya put down her fork and looked at me with this rehearsed expression. I knew whatever was coming wasn't good. "Jake, I need to tell you something important about myself," she said. "I've been doing a lot of thinking and exploring lately, and I've realized I'm bisexual. Now let me be clear. The bisexual part wasn't the issue. People discover new things about themselves all the time. It was what came next that floored me. And I've also realized I can't be confined to a monogamous relationship anymore. I need the freedom to explore this side of myself. We need to evolve into an open relationship, or I think we should break up." There it was, an ultimatum wrapped in progressive language. Evolve or leave. Like I was some caveman who couldn't understand her enlightened perspective. The way she said it made it clear this wasn't a discussion. She'd already decided and was just informing me of the new terms. I sat there for a minute, fork still in my hand, processing. Part of me wanted to tell her to pack her bags right then. But another part of me, the part that remembers my dad's advice to never make big decisions when you're angry, knew there was a better way to handle this. "That's a pretty big change," I said, keeping my voice even. "When did you figure this out?" "I've been feeling this way for months," she replied. "Jade helped me understand that monogamy is just a societal construct designed to control women's sexuality." Of course, Jade should have seen that coming. "So you want to sleep with other people," I said, cutting through the buzzwords. "It's not just about sex, Jake. It's about connection and freedom." But she wouldn't meet my eyes when she said it. "And what would the rules be in this open relationship?" I asked, genuinely curious how far she'd thought this through. This is where it got interesting. The rules, according to Arya, were: we could date and sleep with other people. We had to be honest about who we were seeing. Our relationship remained primary. No bringing people to our apartment. Seemed straightforward enough. I nodded slowly, watching her face relax as she thought she'd won. "Okay," I said. "Let's try it." The shock on her face was priceless. She clearly expected me to either blow up or beg her to reconsider. When I did neither, she stammered something about being glad I understood, then quickly changed the subject. That night, while she was in the shower, I created profiles on 3 dating apps. I'm 34, reasonably fit from regular gym sessions, have my own place, well, shared with Arya, but my name's the only one on the lease, a stable job, and no kids or major baggage. I figured I'd get a few matches, maybe a date or 2 over the next few weeks if I was lucky. What I didn't expect was the sheer volume of interest. By the next morning, I had over 40 matches and a dozen messages. Turns out there are a lot of women in our city interested in meeting a guy who has his life together. Who knew? Arya, meanwhile, had also set up profiles. I saw her swiping furiously on her phone that first night, a slightly smug look on her face. She made a few comments about how many matches she expected to get because women are in high demand in the dating world. 3 days later, I had my first date lined up with a woman named Melissa. When I told Arya I was going out Friday night, her face froze. Already? With who? Woman named Melissa. We're just getting drinks. How did you meet her? Bumble. Following the rules. Just letting you know who I'm seeing. She nodded stiffly and muttered something about having plans with Jade anyway. Friday came and I met Melissa. We had a great time. Just drinks and conversation, nothing physical beyond a hug goodbye. But we clicked and agreed to meet again. Saturday, I had coffee with another match named Rebecca. Different vibe, more serious, but again, enjoyable conversation with someone new. Sunday morning, Arya was noticeably quiet. She'd been out with Jade the night before and came home late. When I mentioned I was meeting someone named Diana for lunch, she slammed her coffee mug down. 3 dates in 1 weekend? Really, Jake? I thought that was the point of an open relationship, I replied. Connection and freedom, right? She didn't have a response for that. Diana and I hit it off immediately. She was smart, funny, and direct about what she wanted. We ended up spending the whole afternoon together, walking around downtown and talking about everything from books to travel. When I got home that evening, Arya was waiting, arms crossed. How was your date? She asked, voice tight. Good. Diana's interesting. We have a lot in common. I'm sure you do, she snapped. Are you sleeping with all these women too? No, I said truthfully. Just getting to know people so far. How about you? Any dates lined up? That's when the truth came out. Despite a week of swiping, Arya hadn't secured a single date. The few matches she did get were with couples looking for a third, not what she wanted, or women who stopped responding after a few messages. The apps are just full of fakes and weirdos, she said defensively. I'm being selective. I nodded and didn't push it. But over the next 2 weeks, a pattern emerged. I went on more dates. Some good, some forgettable, but all respectful and following Arya's rules. Melissa and I were seeing each other regularly now, and things were progressing naturally. Diana and I kept in touch, but decided we were better as friends. Meanwhile, Arya's frustration grew. She'd finally managed 1 coffee date with a woman who apparently spent the whole time talking about her ex-boyfriend. No second date there. And despite her claims about wanting to explore her bisexuality, she seemed increasingly fixated on the fact that I was dating other women rather than trying to connect with women herself. The breaking point came 3 weeks into our open relationship experiment. I was getting ready to meet Melissa for dinner when Arya came into the bedroom, eyes red. This isn't working, she said. What isn't working? I asked, though I knew exactly what she meant. This open relationship, you're just using it to replace me. I stopped putting on my watch and turned to face her. Replace you? I'm following the exact rules you set up. We're still together, I'm being honest about who I'm seeing, and I'm not bringing anyone back here. But you're seeing other women multiple times. You're building connections. That's not what this was supposed to be about. And there it was. The truth finally emerged. What was it supposed to be about then, Arya? She fumbled for words. It was, I just wanted, you weren't supposed to be so successful at it. I sat down on the bed. Let me see if I understand. You wanted an open relationship because you thought you'd have tons of options, and I'd be sitting home alone most nights, grateful for whatever scraps of attention you threw my way? Her face told me everything I needed to know. That's really what this was about, wasn't it? You thought I couldn't do better than you, so you could have your fun with other people while keeping me on standby. No, she protested, but it was weak. I really am bisexual. I needed to explore that. I never questioned that part, I said. But you could have explored it through conversation, therapy, or even just asking if we could have an honest discussion about what you were feeling. Instead, you gave me an ultimatum disguised as enlightenment. She started crying then, real tears. Not the manipulative kind, but the ones that come when someone finally realizes they've screwed up badly. I didn't think you'd actually want anyone else, she admitted in a small voice. I looked at her, this woman I'd built 3 years of my life around, and felt a strange mix of pity and relief. I'm going to meet Melissa, I said, standing up. We can talk more when I get back. Are you breaking up with me? she asked, panicked. No, I said. But I'm not shutting down the connections I've made just because your plan backfired. We can discuss where we go from here later. When I returned that night, Arya was waiting with a complete reversal. She wanted to close the relationship immediately. She'd made a mistake. She wasn't ready for this. She loved me too much to share me. What about your bisexuality? I asked. Your need for freedom? I can explore that in other ways, she said quickly. I don't need to date women to know who I am. I agreed to think about it and went to bed, my mind clearer than it had been in months. The next day, I checked our cell phone records, were on a family plan I pay for, and noticed dozens of texts to a number I didn't recognize from before her big revelation. A quick social media search confirmed my suspicion. It was a guy from her gym. Someone she'd never mentioned. That evening, I laid it all out. The mysterious texts, the timing of her sudden bisexuality, the convenient excuse to open the relationship. Were you already seeing him when you asked to open our relationship? I asked directly. Her silence was my answer. So the whole bisexual angle was what exactly? Cover for the fact you were already emotionally cheating with gym guy? It wasn't like that, she protested. I am attracted to women too. But yes, I had feelings for Ryan and I didn't know how to handle it. You could have broken up with me, I said. Instead, you tried to have it all while assuming I'd be too pathetic to attract anyone else. More tears. More apologies. Promises to cut contact with Ryan, to work on our relationship, to prove herself trustworthy again. But some bells can't be unrung. I'll be moving out, I told her. You have 2 months to either find a new place or take over the lease. I'll sleep on the couch until then. You're leaving me for Melissa? She accused, anger replacing tears. No, I'm leaving you because you lied, manipulated me, and would have cheated if your plan had worked out. Melissa is a separate issue. That was 2 weeks ago. Arya has been cycling between begging me to reconsider and accusing me of betraying her by continuing to see Melissa. Jade came by once to talk sense into me. That conversation ended when I showed her the text history, proving Arya's interest in Ryan predated her bisexual awakening. Yesterday, Arya finally signed papers to take over the lease. I found a new place closer to work and will be moving out next weekend. Melissa and I are still dating, taking things slow and being honest about where we stand. The irony isn't lost on me. Arya's ultimatum to evolve or leave ended with me evolving my understanding of what I want in a relationship and ultimately leaving anyway. The beer's empty now, and this post is long enough. Thanks for letting me vent, Reddit. Life's too short to be someone's backup plan. Edit. Since many have asked, Arya finally admitted that she and Ryan had kissed twice before her open relationship proposal, but claims it never went further. Whether that's true or not doesn't really matter at this point. The intent and deception were enough. Edit 2. For those suggesting I led Melissa on, she knew from day one that I was in an open relationship that had just started. I was completely transparent about my situation. When things changed with Arya, I gave Melissa all the facts and left it up to her whether she wanted to continue seeing me. No deception there. Edit 3. No, I don't feel bad about using the open relationship against Arya. She set the rules, I followed them. That the outcome wasn't what she expected isn't my problem. Update. 1 month later. It's been about a month since my original post, and since so many people asked for an update, here it is. First off, I'm fully moved into my new place. It's smaller than the apartment I shared with Arya, but it's all mine, and the location cuts my commute in half. Win-win. Moving day was awkward. Arya oscillated between cold silence and tearful pleas, but I stayed focused on getting my stuff out efficiently. In the weeks before I moved, Arya tried everything to change my mind. The highlight was her claiming she'd been influenced by Jade and wasn't thinking clearly when she proposed opening the relationship. She even showed me texts where she'd told Jade off and ended their friendship. Too little, too late. The most telling moment came when she accidentally left her phone unlocked with text conversations open while she showered. Classic move. The text showed Ryan repeatedly asking her out after our breakup became known, and her declining. She clearly wanted me to see that she was rejecting him. What she didn't count on was me scrolling up to older messages that confirmed they'd been far more involved than she admitted. The just 2 kisses story was complete BS. They'd been sleeping together for at least a month before her big bisexuality revelation. When confronted, she finally broke down and admitted everything. The bisexual claim wasn't completely fabricated. She did have some attraction to women, but it was massively exaggerated to create the pretext for an open relationship. She thought I'd either refuse, and she could paint me as close-minded, giving her moral high ground to leave for Ryan, or I'd agree, but be unsuccessful with dating, leaving her free to explore with Ryan while keeping me as her safety net. What she didn't expect was for me to be comfortable with the arrangement and successful at it. In her words, I didn't think you'd actually be happier seeing other people. The complete lack of self-awareness was staggering. As for Ryan, turns out he thought Arya was fully single when they started hooking up. When he learned about me, she fed him the line that we were basically over and just figuring out logistics. Once he realized he was being used as the other man in her scheme, he backed off fast. According to mutual friends, he's now telling everyone she's psycho. Not my circus, not my monkeys. Melissa and I are still seeing each other. We've had some good conversations about what happened with Arya, and she's been understanding but cautious. We're exclusive now, but taking things day by day. She's met some of my friends, and that's gone well. The best part of this new relationship is how direct and honest our communication is. No games, no manipulation, just two adults saying what they want and need. Arya hasn't fully given up. Last week, she sent me a long email about how she started therapy to work on her issues with honesty and impulse control. She included links to our articles about forgiveness and rebuilding trust after betrayal. I didn't respond. Some mutual friends have suggested I'm being too harsh, that everyone makes mistakes. But there's a difference between a mistake and a calculated deception. Arya didn't accidentally fall into bed with Ryan or impulsively suggest opening our relationship. She constructed an elaborate lie designed to let her cheat with approval, while assuming I'd be too unappealing to other women to do the same. The most satisfying part of all this? I never raised my voice, never called her names, never sought revenge. I simply followed the rules she created, exposed her lies with evidence, and walked away when the truth was undeniable. Her own scheme was her undoing. One final note. A few people commented on my original post suggesting Arya might try to damage my reputation or create problems with the lease. You were right to be concerned. She accidentally damaged some of my things during the move. Nothing irreplaceable, and has told several mutual friends that I cheated on her with Melissa before the open relationship started. Fortunately, I've kept all our texts about the arrangement, plus the evidence of her affair with Ryan. The few friends who initially believed her changed their minds when I showed them the receipts. So that's where things stand. New apartment, new beginning, new perspective on what I want in a relationship. I'm not bitter. Actually, I'm grateful. Without Arya's catastrophic miscalculation, I might have spent years more with someone who fundamentally didn't respect me. Thanks again for all the support and advice, Reddit. Sometimes the best revenge is simply moving forward. Final update, 3 months later. This will be my last update on the Arya situation, as things have finally settled into a new normal that doesn't involve daily drama. First, the lease situation. Arya actually managed to keep up with payments for the first 2 months after I moved out. Then she suddenly announced she'd found a cheaper place with better energy and wanted to break the lease. Since my name was still technically on it as a guarantor, even though she had taken over the monthly payments, this presented a problem. After consulting with the property manager, we agreed that if Arya found an acceptable replacement tenant, we could transfer the lease with minimal penalties. Surprisingly, she found someone within a week, a friend of hers named Mia, who needed a quick move-in. I met with the property manager to sign the paperwork, removing my name completely, and that's when I learned the real story. Mia wasn't just moving in as a replacement tenant, she was moving in as Arya's new girlfriend. Yes, you read that correctly. The woman who exaggerated her bisexuality is now in a relationship with a woman. The property manager let this slip casually, assuming I already knew. I kept my poker face, thanked her for handling the lease transfer smoothly, and walked out slightly dazed. Later that day, I got a text from Arya. I was going to tell you about Mia when the time was right. Hope you're not upset. I replied, your relationship status isn't my concern anymore. Glad the lease transfer worked out. Take care. She said back a long paragraph about how meeting Mia had helped her truly understand her sexuality, how she regretted hurting me but believed everything happened for a reason, and how she hoped we could be friends someday. I didn't respond. Through mutual friends, I've since learned that Arya is now presenting herself as someone who left a heterosexual relationship to embrace her authentic self. The narrative has completely shifted from what actually happened. Ryan is never mentioned. The cheating is erased. She's rewritten history to cast herself as the brave protagonist of an LGBTQ+ coming out story. Part of me wanted to set the record straight with our social circle. But honestly, what would be the point? The people who matter know the truth. The others will believe whatever narrative they prefer. I've learned to let go of the need to control other people's perceptions. As for Ryan, he apparently tried to reconnect with Arya after I moved out, only to be told she was exploring her true sexuality now. According to a mutual gym friend, he was pretty bitter about it, claiming Arya had told him her bisexuality was just a phase when they were together. Again, not my problem. Jade resurfaced briefly to tell me that Arya had used and discarded her too, and tried to suggest we commiserate over drinks. I politely declined. Getting entangled in that web again, even peripherally, holds zero appeal. On my end, things with Melissa have continued to develop positively. We recently took a weekend trip to the coast, and it was the most relaxed and connected I've felt with someone in a long time. We've had the exclusivity talk and are officially in a committed relationship. The contrast between how I feel with her versus how I felt in the later stages with Arya is night and day. The biggest lesson I've taken from all this isn't about open relationships or sexuality or even betrayal. It's about paying attention to actions rather than words. Arya's words were always perfect. She knew exactly what to say to justify her behavior and paint herself in the best light. But her actions told the real story all along. I sometimes wonder if she actually believes her own revised narrative now. People have an incredible capacity to reframe their mistakes as necessary steps on their journey, to cast themselves as the heroes of stories where they were actually the villains. Maybe in her mind, she really was just a woman discovering her true self, rather than someone who tried to manipulate and deceive her partner. In the end, it doesn't matter what she believes. I know what happened. I know I deserved better. And now finally I'm getting it. Thanks for all the support, Reddit. This chapter is closed.